welcome to all of you and a happy new year to one and all QPR supporters in particular. As usual, we'll be looking to summarise the last three games, predict a few as well, and then chew over some topics. My guest for this episode is someone I can always rely upon to come on at short notice, and is someone who understands QPR very well. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Brian.
So straight on to the usual quick review of the last four league matches and also the FA Cup game. The results were as follows. QPR against Southampton on the 23rd of December, just before Christmas. We lost that 1-0. Millwall against QPR. We lost that one 2-0. You can see a trend developing here. Ipswich against QPR. We drew 0-0. That was on Friday the 29th. And then QPR against Cardiff, that one was a loss, 2-1 loss, sadly, which brings us on to the cup game. And that was against Bournemouth on Saturday, the 6th of January. And we lost that one 2-3. Incredible. So those league results translate into 1 point out of a possible 12. That's left us still sitting in the relegation zone on 21 points. So I'll quickly review those league games. Nobody in the prediction competition on Hoops and Dreams Forum predicted a QPR win against Southampton. But at times in the first half, it looked as if we would be going in there ahead. Instead, sloppy defending from a free kick gave Southampton the only goal of the match. Despite losing, my man of the match was Ilias Chair, and that tells you an awful lot about the Saints' performance. Millwall, well, that was a derby, as you'd expect, and it's one that we should have won. Millwall were poor. They were relying upon their physicality and long balls, but QPR never looked as if they were going anywhere. But surely we must have known that that's what they were going to do. We never looked dominant, and we always looked a little off pace. We cannot even say that the second goal came as a result of us pressing up the field. It was from yet another corner. Ipswich, well, that was another fixture that we didn't expect to win. Or even draw, to be quite honest with you. And it was on a bitter, cold night at Bournemouth Road. But it saw the welcome return of Steve Cook, plus the replacement of Lyndon Dykes with Sinclair Armstrong. That bitter cold did impact the game, with QPR players pulling up with muscle injuries, including the returnee, Steve Cook. Meanwhile, we survived the first half 0-0 against the side, sitting third from the top and free scoring. The second half saw Willock replaced by Smith, who had a valid claim for a stupid push on him in the area. Cook and Chair replaced by Dunn and Lakache because of injuries, and Coley replacing Armstrong. I think that was also an injury. There was even a legitimate claim for another penalty in the dying minutes of extra time, this time for a handball. Sadly, this was a poor referee who, despite being well positioned for both claims, demonstrated the inconsistency that we know of as championship refereeing. Ipswich fans afterwards said that we deserved to win, but Lady Luck continues to pass us by. That match, as well as giving us a lot of injury concerns, provided our only point of those four games. The last match was against Cardiff, a side that has surprised some sides higher up the championship, but did not impress at Loftus Road. However, they were the least bad side. So whilst Smith's nice tap in from a really good Coley cross meant we scored, it was all in vain. Cardiff came away 2-1 winners as we allowed too much freedom for our crosses and goal-scoring headers in the initial third of the pitch. That's where we were failing. So, Steve, a poor set of four matches that showed no promise, showed promise, but little end product.
Yeah, we've been abysmal defensively from set pieces, and unfortunately, we've not been helped by some poor goalkeeping by Bergovic, who's flapped at a few.
That's
and I think
true.
every one of the games, obviously, apart from the Ipswich game, it's either one or two set piece situations that has done for us, or a bit of poor goalkeeping. So overall, every single one of those games, bar the Ipswich game, where we looked positive, it was just awful, really. I mean, you don't want to berate the players because they can only do as well as they can. But this poor defending from set pieces goes all the way back to pre-Warburton, and so it's different players. I mean, Dunn is probably the only constant there, but there's a lack of confidence when a corner or a set piece is put into the box, and we're just not on our toes, I find. And if you haven't got any confidence in your goalkeeper, those defenders are going to panic a bit, and I think that's what's happened.
Yeah, that's a very yeah, it's a good point, Steve, about Begovic. I should have mentioned that, I think, as well. You're quite right too. Also, I think the absence of Steve Cook and Jack Colback highlights really the lack of depth in our squad when it comes to defensive work, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I think what you've got is there's no consistency in the defence either. Marty, because of whether it's the performance coaches, whether it is just injuries, he's had to chop and change a lot of the time. And as we know, if you've got a settled defence, you've got a defence that understands what their fellow players going to do. And in a lot of cases, you're seeing Larkesh one week, and the next week it's Powell. One week it's done, the next week it could be JCS. So there's no settled defence. Probably that doesn't help Begovic either because he's not knowing what the players in front of him are going to do. And it's a combination of things, really.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, well, that brings us on to our final review, which is our usual seasonal humiliations, one of them anyway, the FA Cup. If we played our development squad against theirs, we would have been beaten. If we elected to play our best starting 11, we'd still probably have been beaten, we thought. So our record in club competitions is embarrassingly poor, but with recent results going against us, could we actually afford the distraction and the injuries? We know we need to focus upon championship survival after all. In the end, our starting 11 was a mix of players who returned from injury, such as Fox and Armstrong, drew from the development squad, and those who've not really had much game time, such as Lakashi and Dunn. Meanwhile, Bournemouth put on their best possible side. Surprisingly, the script was deviated from because the R's actually had a really good first half and were 2 up, courtesy of goals from Armstrong and Dykes. But the second half saw the Cherries step up their pace and start scoring. They actually were getting more on the goal. And they ended up with 3 goals, which is really frustrating, especially as 2 of those were from corners, yet again, and overall some poor defending. So, Steve, did having Armstrong up front and Dykes in a more of an attacking midfield role work for you?
I thought they looked good. I have to be honest, that first half, I thought we caused Bournemouth nowhere. And these are all the positives. That the 2 of them playing together worked. They caused Bournemouth no end of problems. And I think everyone was shocked at half time that we were going in 2 goals to the good. But we played well. I thought we defended well. I thought there were lots and lots of positives that came out of that first half. I think what then happened in the second half, and let's not forget, the same time 12 months ago, we were playing Fleetwood and we were dire for the whole match. So it was a great improvement this year to be playing a Premiership team. And for 45 minutes, we looked as good as them and we matched them in all departments and were better in most of them.
Yeah, I actually would say, Steve, that when it comes to shooting at the goal, we were far, far better in that first half.
Yeah.
It's just that second half, they upped the pace and we were terrible yet again on corners. We'll come to this in the topics anyway, but
yeah.
Would it be a question, do you think, that we were robbed, Steve, or was it more a case of mugging ourselves?
Well, we did that. Yeah, it wasn't Bournemouth didn't win the game. We lost it. I blame Marty a little bit because early on they'd made a point of wanting to target the young fullback, Drew.
Yeah.
And they got at him, and he was clearly a bit rattled. And of course, as it ended up, both corners that led to their first 2 goals came down his side. And I don't want to blame him, because Smith wasn't getting back either to help him out. And that can be the trouble. We can be playing a lot of men forward, and we probably were confident because we were 2-0 up. We're looking for a third. We killed the game. Unfortunately, I think their manager obviously gave them a real pep talk at half time. He spotted where we had a weakness. And I don't want to, because Drew I thought was good in the first half. But unfortunately, that was what found us out. And after that, as we say, the set piece defending, which we'll talk about later, was abysmal again, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you could always see that.
Yeah, I was going to say my only thought on this was the substitutions by Marty have been very good in general, but when he replaced Drew with Kakai, and both those players stood off and allowed crosses to carry on coming over. Yeah. Whereas Cannon, I feel, would have been a better choice. I'm not quite sure what was going on there. There must have been a reason, but I don't know what it was. Okay, let's do a quick look at the matches coming up. We've got 3 matches all at home. QPR against Watford on Sunday, the 14th of January. Steve, what do you reckon? They've actually tailed off a bit, Watford, but they are still 10th, 36 points. Win, draw, or loss?
I'm hoping we get a draw, and I'm going to go for a draw. I saw Watford play, being down here, and they played Plymouth the previous Saturday.
Yes.
And they looked quite good. It was a cracking game. I saw a lot in the highlights, and 3-2 at half time, and I think the game ended 3-3. So team that can score plenty of goals, but they can concede as well. So, I mean, fingers crossed. Marty works on the defending this week, and I see us getting a draw in that one.
Okay.
Or I hope we do.
Okay. Next one is QPR against Millwall the following weekend. They're sitting 15th, and they're actually doing the reverse of Watford. They are doing better and better. So win, draw, or loss?
I'm going to go for a win. I'm going to be very positive in this one. I think I wasn't impressed by Millwall when we played them at their place. And I'm going to be positive. This is going to be the win. This is going to start to see us move up the league, right?
Right. Okay. That leaves us with our final one, which is QPR against Huddersfield on Sunday, the 28th. Yeah, Sunday, the 28th of January. We well know that Huddersfield are sitting down near us, and they're doing rather nicely. I think they're doing rather nicely anyway. They've perhaps got a good cup run going. Who knows? So win, draw, or loss for this one?
No, I'm going to go for another win. I'm going to be very, very positive. I'm going to hope, fingers crossed, that we're going to see the likes of Cole back then. I think that we've seen Dykes and we've seen Armstrong playing well. So I'm gonna stay positive for the time being.
Okay.
I know we're in a dire position, but if we can get a couple of wins and a draw out of the next games, that'll do for me.
That sounds reasonable. Okay. I mean, we play well against Watford, but we are susceptible to fast breaks. So for that one, I've gone for a draw as well. Whilst for the return fixture against Millwall, I'm going for a win like you. That leaves Huddersfield, the last of those games. And unlike you, I'm going for a draw purely because both sides will be going for it. And I think that they'll cancel each other out, is what I feel. We shall see who is right. I should go back over these over the year and see how many of these predictions I get right in my guess. But anyway, onto the topic section, and this is where we really try to spend most of our time and talk about things that are hopefully topical. So the first one, It's a fact that we've conceded 9 times now from corners since the arrival of Marty, and he's apparently vowed to improve on this. However, he has had a fair amount of time to address this glaring problem, and as you rightly point out, Steve, so have others before him. But dead ball situations remain an embarrassment. What more can Marty do, Steve, do you think?
What I hope, and again, it is more hope than anything else, is that he can get a settled defence. The problem we know in this league is that you're playing 2 or 3 games a week, and unfortunately, Steve Cook, who is our mainstay in defence, probably can't play that number of games a week, so he will have to chop and change it. But JCS is a decent defence. See that him and Cook will make a good pairing of centre backs. So fingers crossed. It's going to be, Bri, is for them to understand what they've got to do, along with Sam Field as well. Sam's not, he's got to do his bit in there as well, and somebody has got to take control and organise that defence from a corner.
That's a very good point.
We just don't have that leader that is organising the team, and if we can get that, then I'm sure things will change.
Yeah, you raise a very good point there about having a leader to organise the defending. I don't think Begovic is that leader. I think he's got his hands full looking after goal, and that's fair enough. I think he does very well at that. He pulls off some fantastic saves, but I don't think it works having him as captain. Personally, if it were me, I would look at Sam Field or Steve Cook, as you've mentioned, both those two, or even Jack Colback if he was going to be there all the time. But
indeed,
somebody like that, I think. If I was Marty though, and I was trying to sort this problem out, I wouldn't start with the players. I would start instead with the assistant coaches, and I'd be asking them, why do you think that we're failing, and what do you think can be done? It's down to them, I think, to come up with some solutions along with him. And I think once they've all agreed upon what measures need to be adopted, I think he should then turn to the players and say, right, this is what we're going to do. Because at the moment, I don't think whatever approach we're using, it is not working. The basics need to be addressed. Getting balls over that first line of defenders for us is what we should be doing, and what we should be trying to prevent them from doing. And placing that ball into a danger area so that the goalies don't know whether to come out or not. That's what we should be doing, but not allowing them to do. So we're failing at both ends, quite honestly, with this. We're not defending those balls well, and we're not placing them in dangerous areas where we can exploit them. This is going to be a tough one, I think, because as you quite rightly point out, this has been going back as far as Mark Warburton. I mean, it really has been a problem.
Yeah.
And I would emphasise, I think, really that as you point out, Steve Cook, when he plays, it does make a difference. The defending is that much better. And when Marcus Fox was there, equally, it was pretty solid. And JCS, I think, when he comes back and plays alongside either of those two, I think equally will do okay. It's when we get Jimmy Dunn, he's not been as good this season as last season. There's no doubt about it. For whatever reason, perhaps because of his injury, I don't know. But yeah, I certainly think that Cook and Fox or Clark Salter, they're the ones that we should be looking at. And they need to go back and they need to practice and practice and practice just as much as we need to practice with crossing to get those balls into the dangerous areas. At the moment, we're not even getting balls out as far as the first defender from corners, or set pieces. Okay, right. Mooning over on that one. So how much money do you think that Marty Cifuentes has available this January to improve the squad?
I don't think he's got anything. I think they've said to him, I think it's going to be loan signings only. I mean, what we've done in the past, the past 2 January windows, I don't think we brought anybody in. that I can remember. And we know that the club don't like to spend money in January. And that makes sense to me, because what you want to do is you want to build the team in the summer. And if you've got money, that's when you want to spend it. But at this moment in time, you'll pay we'd have to pay a huge premium, because people are still in contract. And I just think there are plenty of strikers that we saw, didn't we? We saw against Bournemouth. The big man come in, score against us. We know the damage he can do in the Championship. Ideal man to get in, but maybe Bournemouth don't want him to go. Maybe his wages are too high. But I think the only way around it in this month is going to be a couple of loan signings, if we can get them.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the best we can hope for. I mean, I agree with you, by the way. I don't think we have much money, if any, for this. That's the grim reality, of where we are. But I do feel that we do need to carry on building a side that's confident in possession and capable of fast breaks. That's really, really important that we go with that. I think the best way really is going to be a loan coupled with a permanent signing at the end. I was going to say, as with Taylor Richards, but not quite. I mean, with a player who's actually going to play. Yeah, we've been dead unlucky with that one, but there we go.
Yeah.
I mean, if we nail this down a bit further, we've discussed on the Hoops and Dreams forum many times that the need for a striker who scores more goals than Armstrong or Dykes, despite last match. So are there any other positions that you think we really must strengthen, Steve?
Yeah, well, I would like to see us in that aggressive midfielder, a leader, someone who's going to take control, who will point and shout and tell the senior players as well as the younger players where they should be. We've got nobody like that, right? It's very key for me that the two things we lack are a goal scorer and a leader. And I've been saying, it's things that all the fans have been saying going back to Nedham's time. He was the last real leader that we had in the team. And ever since then, I mean, let's be honest, Charlie came back and he was telling Dykes where to go, what runs to do. And there was a magical turnaround in Dykes' form and he started to score. Not saying that Charlie was the main man, but Johansson, who had also been a captain, was trying to organise things.
Yeah,
and that's what we need. We lack that at the moment.
Yeah, you're right on that. I mean, perhaps it does come down to a captain as well. But my poll that I did on the Hoops and Dreams forum showed that after getting a striker, which was the major one, no great surprise there, to turn around our joint worst scoring record in the Championship, the most voted option was as you say, for an attacking midfielder. Everybody, I think, can understand the desire there, because the goals coming through from the midfield this year have been far and few between. And as long as Taylor Richards remains unavailable, and perhaps Chair or Willock is sold, we really do need to be looking at strengthening that area. So I agree totally with you on that. These are troublesome times. I don't even want to think about the idea of really of Chair or Willock going, or even Sam Field come to that.
No.
Okay, so
it would turn.
I guess we're in the middle of
disastrous, I think.
Sorry, mate. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if one of those goes, or more than one of those goes, they are the mainstay of the team. When they play, they do make things happen. And if they go, we're in problems now, but we're just going to have bigger problems, aren't we?
I don't even want to think about it. Honestly, I don't. We're in the middle of, obviously, not the middle, we're at the beginning of the January transfer window, which is hence the reason why we're sort of discussing all this. But assuming we get the options to do it, which players, if any, do you think would be sent out on loan in the final months of this season, Steve?
I think very few, if any, will go out on loan now, Brian, because I think we can see with Marty's tinkering, we need the full squad. It's clear that we probably haven't had as many injuries as we've had in previous seasons, but we're having a few, and we know that the ages of our players, certainly the ones like Fox and Steve Cook, and Jack Colback for that matter, we brought them in, and the risk we took was that we knew that they weren't going to be able to play the number of games that are required in the Championship. And so the squad now has to really pull its socks up. We need to see performances from some of the fringe players.
Yeah, maybe Marty needs to install a hairdryer in the changing room.
Something needs to happen. Yeah. I mean, Duke McKenna maybe does go out on loan, though, Brian, because we've not seen him for a while.
That's a very good point. I mean, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking if we got in another striker, a good call would probably be to send Armstrong out on some sort of conditional one as a striker to gain some more match time, because he's not getting enough as it stands at the moment.
No.
And I think it would help him to develop as a player. For the same reason, I'd look to send out Pedder and Drew, because I think both those would benefit. And as you rightly point out, Duke McKenna's another one. And I would also probably send out Charlie Kelman somewhere to offset the wage bill, if nothing else. These are difficult times for us when we have so little money and so little choice. Okay, well, our time is now up, and all that remains is for me to thank my guest Steve for agreeing to be on this podcast, editor Dave, as always, for his editing, and all of you for watching. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, then do click on subscribe and do add a comment or two below. You'll have noticed that we do try and always reply. I'm Brian Fisher, and this has been a Hoops and Dreams QPR podcast. Keep the faith and come on, you R's.
We know who we are. You know who we are. We are QPR.